The evening begins with the hush of snow pressing against tall stone windows, its pale light drifting into the wide expanse of the great hall. The vast chamber, with its timbered beams and high-arched ceilings, feels both immense and intimate in the soft quiet of preparation. The air carries the faint scent of evergreen branches, freshly brought in from the forest, their needles still dusted with frost, filling the room with a sweetness that blends with the faint smoke from the hearth fires being stoked to life. Shadows flicker against the walls as torches are lit one by one, their flames catching on polished iron sconces and shimmering gently across tapestries that tell of long-forgotten winters. The sound of heavy oak tables being dragged across the stone floor is softened by layers of woven rush mats laid out beneath them, their earthy fragrance grounding the grandeur in simple, familiar textures. There is no haste in this work. Every gesture belongs to a rhythm that has repeated for generations, a careful balance of duty and reverence. At the heart of this ritual lies more than mere preparation. It is a slow weaving of warmth into a hall that will soon echo with laughter, song, and the clinking of cups. Even in its emptiness, the hall hums with anticipation, like a great instrument waiting for the first note to be struck. By the time the first candles are placed upon the long tables, the space begins to glow not just with light, but with the quiet promise of gathering, of stories shared, of the warmth of belonging. It is a transformation felt as much in spirit as in sight, a gentle unfolding of welcome in the coldest season. The hall lies vast and silent, its ancient stones exhaling the deep chill of winter. Into this silence enters the quiet labor of hands preparing for warmth. From a small door near the kitchens, attendants move with measured steps, carrying bundles of dried herbs tied with twine, their fragrances mingling, rosemary, thyme, and juniper, each carrying both utility and blessing. They are laid upon the tables with deliberate care, not scattered, but placed as though to invite the season itself into the feast. Great logs, chosen from the woods months earlier and seasoned through autumn's winds, are now stacked by the hearth. Their surfaces are rough, bark cracked, and yet they are carried with a reverence reserved for treasures, for it is the fire they will become that will bind the gathering together. Woolen tapestries are unfurled from storage, their threads still holding the faint musk of cedar chests, and hung to soften the cold stone walls with scenes of summer hunts and fields alive with wheat. The sound of sweeping bristles against the floor becomes a rhythm of preparation, dust and straw brushed into corners until the flagstones gleam in the candlelight. All this unfolds not with urgency, but with the patience of a liturgy, each motion a prayer for abundance, each pause a moment of gratitude. The hall grows steadily brighter, warmer, alive again after the long quiet of empty months. As the last garland of ivy is draped along the rafters, the transformation nears its fullness. The chamber no longer feels like stone and timber alone, but like a vessel of welcome, gently breathing, awaiting the heartbeats and voices that will soon gather within its embrace. The preparation begins in the stillness of morning, when the hall is hushed beneath shafts of pale winter light. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of stone dampened by melting frost. In this early quiet, benches are drawn from alcoves and set around heavy oak tables, their surfaces burnished by years of feasts and stories spoken across them. The work is unhurried, the scrape of wood on stone softened by the echo of the cavernous space. Lanterns are trimmed, their glass polished until they glimmer like small stars, ready to scatter gentle light into the dim corners. From the courtyard, children's laughter drifts in as they gather sprigs of holly and pine cones to be arranged along the tables, their bright berries a reminder of life persisting through the snow. The scent of beeswax rises as candles are set in iron holders, their golden flames soon to soften the shadows and cast the hall into a warm, dreamlike glow. Each touch of preparation, whether folding cloths of linen across the tables or smoothing down the rushes freshly spread across the floor, carries with it an unspoken reverence, not for the grandeur of the feast itself, but for the quiet communion that precedes it. It is as though the hall is being readied to cradle not only bodies, but the very spirit of winter, to transform cold nights into gentle remembrance and shared comfort. By the time dusk begins to fall, the hall is no longer a hollow chamber of stone, but a luminous sanctuary waiting, with patience and grace, for its moment of joy. As twilight folds itself gently over the castle, the great hall begins to stir with the muted symphony of preparation. The air is cool, touched by the faint perfume of beeswax and pine resin, as candles are drawn from their carved wooden boxes, each one smoothed by careful fingers before being placed in waiting holders. Servants move with quiet grace, their footsteps softened by the layers of rushes freshly laid upon the stone floor, the dry stalks releasing a faint grassy sweetness beneath the weight of each step. Evergreen boughs, heavy with their scent of forest, are lifted high and wound carefully along the beams, their needles brushing softly against the old timbers as though stitching the hall back into harmony with the earth beyond its walls. The hearth crackles as thick logs take flame, each pop of the wood like a small punctuation of warmth against the vast hush of the chamber. Tapestries, depicting long-past hunts and golden harvests, hang heavily in their places, their woven colors dim yet enduring, reminders of seasons long gone yet eternally present. Each gesture within this ritual of readiness feels deliberate, almost sacred, as though by smoothing a linen cloth or straightening a bench, one ensures not just order, but welcome. The hall itself seems to exhale, releasing the cold and drawing in the promise of warmth. As the last candle is lit, a soft glow spreads across the length of the room, touching stone, wood, and fabric with quiet reverence. The chamber now seems to hold within it a patient heartbeat, a gentle rhythm that speaks of gathering, of laughter and voices that will soon rise to meet the flicker of firelight. The morning begins with frost glimmering upon the window panes, each pattern delicate as lace. Inside, the hall is still, yet filled with the faint hum of quiet labor. Attendants step carefully across the flagstones, carrying folded linens that release the faint aroma of lavender, stored in cedar chests through the passing seasons. Each cloth is unfurled slowly, smoothed across the tables, so that the hall begins to gleam with pale expanses of fabric, softening the severity of oak and stone. The hearth, a vast mouth carved of granite, awakens with the crackle of kindling, its warmth spreading in lazy tendrils across the chamber. The flicker of the flames dances against the vaulted ceiling, weaving shadows that shift like dream figures above. Garlands of ivy and holly are draped along the walls, the green made richer by the soft gleam of berries that promise endurance even in the heart of winter. The air is alive with mingled scents, resin, wood smoke, crushed herbs, as if the very season has been invited in to bless the gathering. Though many hands move, there is no urgency, only the cadence of tasks performed with care and devotion. Each candle placed on the table feels like a prayer lit against the darkness outside, each sweep of the broom a quiet offering to peace and order. By the time dusk descends, the great hall has shed its stillness. It now hums with a warmth deeper than fire, a readiness that feels like an embrace waiting to close around all who enter. The hall rests beneath the hush of falling snow, its high windows tracing faint silver outlines against the darkened sky. Within, the ritual of preparation begins as a procession of quiet movements, each step echoing through the chamber like the soft toll of a bell. Long trestle tables, their wood polished smooth by countless years of use, are drawn into place with careful strength, their weight anchoring the vastness of the hall. From baskets lined with linen, fragrant branches of rosemary and thyme are scattered gently along the tables, their green sprigs whispering of summer even as the world beyond lies deep in frost. Torches along the walls are touched with flame, and their light flickers against tapestries worn by centuries, awakening faded threads into momentary brilliance. The rushes newly spread upon the floor carry the dry, sunlit scent of autumn fields, grounding the winter chill in memory of warmth. Servants hum softly as they work, melodies without words that ripple gently through the hall, weaving sound into silence. Above, garlands of evergreen hang from beams, swaying slightly as though the breath of the season itself moves within them. Nothing is hurried.
Each action folds into the next with the measured grace of tradition, as though time itself slows within these walls. As the last taper is lit upon the high table, the hall glows with a quiet radiance, its stones no longer cold, but softened into golden shadow. The air feels alive with expectancy, as if the very walls lean closer, ready to cradle the feast to come. The first sound within the still hall is the faint creak of hinges as the great doors are opened to admit the day's preparations. Cold air drifts in, edged with the scent of snow, quickly softened by the glow of the fires already being kindled in the hearth. The flames climb slowly, their light spilling across carved beams and catching in the gleam of polished brass vessels set on side tables. Along the walls, wreaths of evergreen are hung with deliberate care, each one bound with simple twine, their scent a forest echo brought indoors. The stone floor is softened with fresh rushes, the dry stalks whispering beneath each step, while benches are set in rows, their wood darkened by years of touch and use. Candles are placed down the length of the tables, their golden flames soon to shimmer like a constellation, mirroring the stars that will later glisten in the cold night sky beyond the windows. The quiet murmur of workers carries through the chamber, voices low, measured, weaving with the scrape of chairs, the swish of broom bristles, the rustle of cloth being smoothed into place. The hall transforms slowly, yet each change brings a warmth that gathers, layering like blankets over stone. By the time twilight seeps through the high arches, the space has become more than stone and timber. It feels like a vessel of memory and expectation, waiting with calm patience for the voices and laughter that will soon awaken its heart.